Okay, so, after Amsterdam, I ended up in Brussels, and two things I want to talk about. First, Brussels. Now, I didn't get any footage of Brussels because when I got to Brussels, I stepped out of the train station, and it was dirty. It felt like a bit of a ghetto. There were squatters everywhere. There were just people that looked like they were gonna jump me at a moment's notice kind of thing. And so I look around. I'm like, okay. Um, and yeah, there was a couple groups of people that were eyeing me like it was about to get intense. Um, so what I ended up doing as I'm following the map on my phone to get to the hostel is I ended up pulling all of my hair down in front of my face, and just made myself look very, very kind of dark and messy kind of ish, and then put my phone up to my ear. I took a phone of like a fake phone call and just started to speak really loudly in Russian. And then every time I started to and as I walked, every time I had to pass someone, I would just glare them down, just every single person. And there were a couple times where someone would start to walk behind me. I'd literally stop off to the side of the sidewalk and I would just glare at them as they walked past. And they would just kind of look at me like, oh, okay, whatever. And thankfully, nothing ended up happening in the end. But the section of the city I was in was just so bad and so dirty that I ended up just wanting to get out as fast as possible. And so I got to the hostel, um, and I was still in Russian mode. So when I started talking to him in English, I just had a Russian accent on because it just came out. So I kept it up the entire time, which is kind of why I didn't record a video yesterday, is because one, I never left the hostel because I got there at 8 p.m. and I had to leave the next morning at 8 a.m. Um, and because I had a Russian accent the entire time as I was mingling and talking to people at the hostel, because it had been established, so I had to keep it up. So everyone there who met me thinks I'm Russian, and that's not the worst thing in the world, honestly, when you're in a foreign country. Now, I'm guessing the middle of Brussels is fantastic and beautiful, but the section I was in wasn't, and I didn't feel like taking footage of that. It just wasn't part of the plan. So, next morning I left, and I ended up making it to Basel, um, Switzerland. But I'll talk about that in another video. The other thing I wanted to talk about in here while I have the sec, um, is that I am religious. I do believe in God, and this next part is about to get religious. If you're not interested in that, that's okay. Go ahead and cut the video here. But um, I just want to tell you that it's been amazing how many times I've seen God literally guiding me through this trip. For example, I um, way back in Berlin is when I had booked my time in Brussels. And at first, I had booked this Airbnb for 2 days, and I was gonna go just from Brussels to Paris. I wasn't even gonna come to Switzerland or anything. Um, and I put in the request for the Airbnb, and they were gonna get back to me. And I just kind of thought about it. I'm like, nah, not quite right. So I ended up canceling the request, um, and then found the hostel. And the hostel bed that I wanted was only good for one night. And so I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do after that? Because I'm supposed to be in Paris on the 28th. What do I do? I thought about it. I'm like, I really want to go see Switzerland. I think I could make it. And turns out, yeah, there was a train to Switzerland. So I'm like, great. I'll hop on the train. I'll go to Switzerland. I'll stay there for the evening. And then I'll go to Paris, which is fantastic. So, one upside, I was able to come to Switzerland. Two is from Brussels to Switzerland, it um it was sorry, I had to think about it. I went from Brussels to Frankfurt and Frankfurt down to Basel. And in Frankfurt, I had about a 50 minutes to change trains, which is great, awesome. But while I'm en route to Frankfurt, our train starts having technical issues, and we end up getting delayed, like a long delay, like about 35 minutes of a delay. And I'm like, really kind of getting worried. I think it was a full 40 minutes. So I'm like, once I get to the train station, I have to run. Um, and I end up getting to Frankfurt Station. I jump off the train. I immediately look at the platforms to find my next train, and I find out I just hopped off this one, and literally on the opposite side of the platform is my next train. So I just walked right across, hopped onto the next one, grabbed a seat, and then kept going. And that was. No, I know that might be a moment of, oh, that's just pure luck or something, or who knows what. I don't know. Because when I booked for Switzerland, I had this feeling that, that was actually what I was supposed to do. And phone buzz. I don't know. It felt like a bit of a miracle to me because I was stressing out about it. And, maybe I would have been fine no matter what. But, anyways, I've seen moments like that several times on this trip where things just barely work out in just this perfect way. And I've tried to keep track of them just because they've been important, but they've happened quite a few times. And so being able to go to Switzerland, which was huge on my list as well, it was Amsterdam and Switzerland for the two big things. And then for it to work out with the trains and everything else, it was just kind of surprising. So yeah, so I am going to attribute that to God at this point because it was too perfect. It was just too perfect. That and the seat that I ended up taking on the train to end up in Switzerland um, was a reserved seat. I hadn't made a reservation. I hadn't gotten to it. Um, and they said I probably wouldn't need one. Ended up being that the train was completely full, except the one seat I was in was also reserved. The guy never showed up for his reservation, so I got my seat. So it's one thing after another. Um, it's been all throughout this trip, but those were like three in a row that I just like I've got to say something about it. Um, it's been remarkable, absolutely remarkable. And then one other fantastic thing is I was leaving Brussels. I realized I had never gotten a chance to try Belgian chocolate from Belgium to make sure it really is exactly what I think it is. And what I tried in Amsterdam was Belgian chocolate. And I found this little like chocolate shop. That's the word I'm looking for. In the train station in Brussels before I left. And I walk up and I'm trying to pick one and everything, and I'm just kind of joking with the girl, and she's like, "Oh, what kind? Yada yada yada." I'm like, "I think I'll just have one caramel Belgian chocolate." Great. And she just kind of looks at me. And she's like, "Just one?" I'm like, "Well, yeah. I don't have a whole lot of money, and I've got to run, and this is my only chance to try one." She's like, "Oh, if that's the case, here, just take it." I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Well, we only sell them in packs of 3 and more. So one isn't something I can exactly ring up. So this one's on the house. Just take it." And so I love her to death, and I told her that. And if I ever find her again, I'm taking her on a date because she was cute. But that was also just another little aw, and it was great. Cool. Caramel in Europe is so much better than caramel in the U.S. It's so amazing here. Um, and yes, that Belgian chocolate was divine, and what I had in Amsterdam was the real thing. It was good. So, anyways, lots of little miracles, even though life has been crazy. Just wanted to throw it out there. This is what happens. Anyways, subscribe, and yeah, just remember to have fun, guys. Have fun in life. Bye.